But what happens when the power bestowed by money isn't used for the greater good?
Let's compare something like benefit fraud with something like tax evasion. Immediately, you can sense that there is an inequality in how these ethically identical issues are examined and scrutinised.
It's time to meet Robin McAlpine, former journalist, lobbyist, and now the director of think tank Common Weal.
Okay, Robin, so let's talk benefit fraud versus tax evasion. Not a great deal of ethical difference between the two, but at least to my mind, there's a disproportionate level of discussion and scrutiny of one over the other.
Attention is paid to these two things have got absolutely nothing to do with numbers. So we're looking at estimates of about £2.8 billion is what's overclaimed in the benefit system. If you compare that to corporate tax evasion and tax avoidance, that's £90 billion at the very least. If you get caught with benefit fraud now and you get your benefits withdrawn, you go from not enough income to live to no income. That's a devastating impact, and the impact on children in particular is appalling. The thing that's so awful about the corporate fraud is not just that they are unable to dodge so much of their duty to society, their tax burden. It's the fact that they've got so much money now that they change the rules. They influence government to change the rules. I did this for years. This is my living. I was a lobbyist. Government is filled with people who are seconded from big business. If you go and you look at the people who are writing tax policy, a lot of them are there temporarily from the big accountancy firms who are working with the big corporations. It's not just that they influence policy, their employees write the policy in government. They do it, spend 2 years there, and then they go straight back in. It's called the revolving door. None of this is accidental. None of this just happens to happen. This is all carefully planned and designed.
In an analysis of almost 7,000 national press articles, it was found that 29% of news stories referenced benefit fraud. It's clearly a journalistic obsession.
There's only one person that you can defame in public, and it's poor people. You can't get legal aid to sue. You can say anything you want about poor people.
What strategies do corporations engage in order to keep changing the conversation around what their activities actually are behind the curtain of what they'd like us to see?
It's not the corporations that try to focus the hatred, the anger at the poor. They're just chasing their agenda. And their agenda is deregulate, give us what we want. But if their agenda is cut tax, and it always is, it's always cut tax. If their agenda is cut tax, it falls on the politicians. And then the politicians have got to find somewhere to cut from. And it's the politicians who, under pressure to constantly cut tax, are saying, well, we need to cut spending. So where do we cut spending? They poor people, they can't defend themselves. How do we make the public swallow it? Let's do one more speech about benefit cheese. And that's how it works.
As a politician, their attention's always been pulled in a direction all the time. And it's really just a question of a numbers game of who's the most organised in terms of pushing them.
There's this idea that what means a class war, or is a class war going on? There's no class war, it's not a class war, it's a massacre. There's no equal fight here. One side lost completely. They've been left to fight among themselves for the scraps at the bottom.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because really, the people who would rather we didn't have a discussion about class, they could eradicate the need for a discussion about class by just signing up to a society that was fairer. Because then we wouldn't need the language of class struggle to describe what's going on.
And this is the problem. Do the right thing. Let's build good, affordable housing for rent,